The gavel never rang, but the subsequent silence rang out more clearly than the loudest of courtroom judgments. The Browns' empire, a vast, messy, and contentious family, had crumbled not in public spectacle, but behind the locked doors of a mansion that had witnessed too many fights, too many tears, and too many shattered promises. And at the center of it all was one man, Kody Brown. He positioned himself for years as the patriarch, the provider, the leader of a plural family that enthralled and repelled hundreds of millions of viewers. He insisted on loyalty, obedience, and sacrifice from his wives. He established his ego on the notion that the family would disintegrate without him. But ultimately, it wasn't Christine, Janelle, or Meri, the wives who pushed back against him, questioned him, and ultimately left him behind, who brought about his demise. No. The knockout punch was brought by the one woman he trusted above all others, the one wife he had always defended, the one he insisted was his soulmate, Robyn. It took a moment, but it had taken years to build. Kody lingered in the doorway, half-sipped suitcase at his feet, fury seething in his chest, when Robyn's voice sliced the air like lightning. Out, that one word, crisp, absolute, ruthless, killed the fantasy that had sustained their marriage. It was neither a plea nor a fight. It was a command. And in that instant, the dynamics of power would forever be altered. Kody's face contorted in shock, his lips quivering as he attempted to speak. But words would not come. This was not Christine raging in anger. This was not Janelle balking at compromise. This was not Meri subtly backing away. This was Robyn, his defending shield, his counselor, his helpmeet, turning the dagger he had never seen. The man who had once paraded through the house as king was now a dethroned man, stripped of his crown, his power, and his pride. That's the question everybody asked. How did the favorite wife, the woman who had stuck with Kody through every argument, every scandal, every storm, become the architect of his downfall? The truth is, it wasn't overnight. It was a slow and deliberate process. While Kody waged wars with his other wives, wars of loyalty, respect, and control, Robyn stayed silent. She didn't scream. She didn't storm off. She didn't threaten to leave. Rather, she waited. She watched. She listened. And in the stillness, she schemed. Account by account, she gained control. Deed by deed, she moved them into her own name. Piece by piece, she built a future, not for Kody, not for the family, but for herself and her kids. Before Kody could figure out what had occurred, it was too late. His signatures were on the documents. His trust had been his downfall. And Robyn, who had been the embodiment of loyalty just moments before, now stood as the bringer of destruction to his kingdom. The argument was nothing less than explosive. Kody stormed into the living room, documents clutched in hand, his voice shaking with fury. Robyn, what is this? You transferred everything, every account, every property into your name. Robyn didn't bat an eyelid. She didn't sob. She didn't beg. Instead, she met his gaze, her voice flat but biting. Yes, Kody, I did, because someone had to keep this family safe from you. The words struck him more forcefully than a blow. He reeled, his chest pumping, his head spinning. For years he had exacted obedience. For years he had claimed to be the guardian. And now Robyn was standing there in front of him, telling him the truth he couldn't hear. She no longer believed in him to command. The silence that followed was oppressive. And then the coup de grace. Pack your stuff. You don't reside here anymore. Those aftershocks from that evening didn't remain at the entrance. They resonated throughout the family, throughout their children, throughout a host of fans who had supported the Browns for over a decade. Christine was vindicated. She had forewarned Kody that his fixation on Robyn would be his downfall. And now she was right. Janelle felt vindication. She fought with him over finances, pleaded with him to cease his irresponsible spending, and now she saw the fruits of his hubris. Meri felt vindication. For years, she was pushed aside, embarrassed, disregarded. Now Kody finally knew what it was like to be dumped. But the kids, they only experienced pain. Their home, already weak, was destroyed utterly. The father they had once expected to be strong now seemed weak, broken, embarrassed. The mother they had once viewed as quiet and faithful now seemed cold, calculating, ruthless, and the world watched. Headlines blared, Robyn betrays Kody, takes the property. Talk shows discussed, was she a villain or a survivor? Fans mobbed social media. Karma finally caught up with Kody. It wasn't a family scandal anymore. It was public spectacle. But the last word wasn't screamed, nor was it cried. It was written. When Kody came back, pleading to be let back in, he found the doors locked, and a white envelope flapped to the door. Inside, a letter from Robyn's lawyer, stating the truth in cold, impersonal words. You no longer have ownership or residence rights. Any intrusion will be trespassing. Robyn's signature at the bottom. Strong, steadfast, final. It was finished. Legally, emotionally, completely. Kody sat on the porch, the letter in his shaking hands, rain seeping into his clothes. He whispered into the darkness, his words hardly audible. You were supposed to be faithful. You were supposed to be mine. But no one replied. The house was quiet, the windows lit with light that no longer invited him in. He was no longer the head, no longer the father, no longer even a husband. He was just a man, left without anything, sitting by himself with nothing but the burden of his pride. And what about Robyn? To others, she was the survivor, the woman who had weathered decades of tumult, and at last had a secure future to look forward to. A future she could share with her children. She gave no interviews. She made no statements. She didn't need to. Her silence was greater than words. She stood at the window that night, as Kody drove away for the final time, not out of pity, not out of regret, but out of triumph. And, thus the tale of Kody Brown's empire came to an end. Not with a crash, but with a word. Out. The wives who cautioned him were vindicated. The children who required him were left bewildered. The viewers who had waited years witnessed the ultimate twist conclusion, and Kody himself. He was left wondering, dethroned, defeated, undone by the woman he trusted the most. This was not a family drama. This was the fall of an empire. A tale of pride, betrayal, and the sobering truth that sometimes the biggest threat is not your enemy, but the person who is right next to you. The gavel may never have come down, but in the court of justice and betrayal, the ruling was clear. Robyn had emerged victorious. Kody was done, and the Browns' legacy lay in shambles. The air in the Brown family estate was thick, the sort of weighted silence that precedes a storm. The sun had dipped late into the evening, and the golden glow spread across the tall windows, falling along the highly polished wood floors to create long sinuous shadows. For so many years, this house had been the setting for the laughter, for the tears, for the arguments, and for the well-crafted illusions of familial togetherness. But this evening, it would be the arena of betrayal, one so tremendous that even the walls appeared to shake in expectation. And then it occurred. One word, laced with the intensity of 1,000 tempests, tore the silence asunder. Out. The tone was stern, authoritative, unrelenting. It was not Kody Brown's voice, the patriarch who for years had felt himself above the law. No, the voice belonged to Robyn, the wife who had always been considered the favorite, the loyal one, the woman who hung with Kody while the others departed. Kody stood motionless, his suitcase bagging at his side, his face contorted in shock, his lips parted to tell her something, but nothing emerged. He had had his share of showdowns before. Shouting fits with Christine, cold wars with Meri, tearful fights with Janelle. But this was different. This was the end. The man who used to preside at the top of the family table, issuing orders and expecting fidelity, was now being taken away from all he had, not by the wives he had always belittled, but by the woman he believed was his last supporter. This was not another family brawl. This was the cracking point. The time the empire he constructed came crashing down. The illusion of control. For years Kody had operated under the delusion that he was the master of his domain. He boasted about leadership, about being the breadwinner, about protecting his wives and children from life's tumult. He liked to present himself as the glue that kept the family intact. But anyone close to the situation could observe the fissures. Christine had departed first, tired of the neglect and the partiality. Janelle trailed behind, not willing to give up her autonomy for a man who would not hear. Meri emotionally distanced herself well before she walked away. Meanwhile, Kody held on to Robyn. She was his armor, his solace, the one who stuck with him when the world appeared to collapse. He thought that her allegiance was unbreakable, her commitment boundless, and in so thinking he had a misguided sense of security. But what Kody failed to notice, or didn't want to notice, was that Robyn's devotion was conditional, conditions he had already violated. The final straw, the path to this explosive moment wasn't paved in a single night. It was constructed brick by brick, betrayal by betrayal, lie by lie. Kody had promised, about security, about family, about love, and repeatedly he reneged. His desperate need for control, his disastrous money choices, and his failure to reconcile the needs of his wives had left a trail of devastation. Robyn had stood by in silence. She had cried in secret. She had implored him to change, begged him to consider the repercussions of his decisions. But Kody was too proud to hear her. And so Robyn started planning, secretly, strategically, patiently. Before Kody could realize the extent of her determination, it was too late. The bank accounts had been transferred. The deeds to the property were in her name. The house they were in, the very embodiment of Kody's pride, no longer belonged to him. The showdown, the confrontation was as dramatic as any courtroom battle. Kody stormed into the living room, his voice cracking with rage, waving documents he had finally taken the time to read. His face was red, his words tumbling out in a frantic rush. "Robyn, what is this? You've moved everything, every account, every property into your name. Tell me this isn't true." But Robyn didn't blink. She didn't cower or weep like she might have before. She stood firm instead, her arms crossed, her gaze unwavering. "Yes, Kody," she replied, voice level but icy, slicing through his panic like a knife. "I did it, because someone had to stop this family from being destroyed. You were selfish, oblivious to the harm you were doing. I couldn't let you destroy everything." Her words clung to the air like smoke, strangling him, choking him. He reeled away as though hit, the papers spilling from his hand. For the first time ever, the great patriarch was helpless. And then she dropped the blow that condemned him. "Pack up your belongings, Kody, you no longer live here." Shockwaves, the house breathed with the heaviness of those words. Kody's chest expanded and contracted quickly, his mind whirling, but no defense arose. His kingdom, his wives, his children, his power, his pride, was lost. And now, even Robyn, the woman he held onto as testament to his value, rejected him. He staggered to the staircase, his eyes going up at the photographs of his family that ran along the wall. Smiling faces from years past looked back at him. Christine cradling a baby, Janelle smiling at a holiday meal, Meri standing at the edge of a group photo, and Robyn at his side, always at his side. Those smiles were ghosts now, reminders of trust broken and promises shattered. The quiet weighed in more heavily, broken only by the ring of his own suitcase wheels against the floor as he dragged it with him. The audience beyond the walls. But this was not a personal fight. The world was watching. Fans, critics, and media watched the Browns for years, analyzing each battle, each tear, every hug. And now, they would witness Kody's fall in all its gritty, embarrassing glory. On social media, whispers of favoritism and betrayal were no longer whispers. They were shouts. Christine's words about Kody's obsession with Robyn resurfaced. Janelle's frustrations about finances were validated. And Meri's long-standing isolation suddenly made sense. The narrative had shifted. Kody wasn't the strong patriarch trying to hold a family together. He was the man who lost it all, because he gave too much power to one wife and underestimated her resolve. Betrayal or justice? And so the question lingered in the air like smoke: was this betrayal, or was it justice? To Kody it was betrayal. The knife in the back from the person he trusted would never betray him. But to Robyn, it was justice. It was survival. It was the act of a woman pushed to extremes. A woman who would not stand by and let her family's future be ruined by a man driven by ego. Either way, the facts were indisputable. Kody was out, and as the front door slammed shut behind him, the reverberations of that single word, "out," still rang out, not only through the mansion, but through the hearts of all who had witnessed this family disintegrate for years. The king was toppled. The devoted wife was the executioner, and the Browns' empire would never remain the same. The fall of Kody Brown did not come in a flash of explosions. Not immediately, anyway. It was not a midnight betrayal, or a screaming argument that culminated in slammed doors. No, this one was more gradual, more silent and much more sinister. It was like the poison put into a glass, unremarked upon until it was too late. While Kody was too involved fighting with Christine, Janelle and Meri bickering about loyalty, parenting and respect, Robyn had other things to do. She wasn't yelling. She wasn't storming out of the house. She was observing, listening and plotting. The silent observer for years. Robyn played the role of the supportive wife. She was the shoulder Kody cried on when Christine told him she'd had enough. She was the comforting voice when Janelle pulled away, frustrated with his controlling ways. And she was the sympathetic ear when Meri's relationship with him turned into nothing more than cold distance. Kody felt this devotion made her unique. To him, Robyn was not like the rest. She was committed. She was forbearing. She was the good wife. And for that he dropped his guard. But behind her calm gaze, Robyn was taking it all in. She witnessed the irresponsible manner in which Kody spent money. She listened to the vows he made that he could not fulfill. She sensed the chaos accumulating in the family finances. And while Kody discoursed at length about his status as leader and provider, Robyn noticed the reality: he was falling apart. The first step, gaining access, it began small, nearly undetectable. Robyn promised to help pay bills. She offered to put the giant stack of paperwork that Kody disregarded in order. She said she needed to lighten some of the load from his shoulders. To Kody it was sounds like worship. To Robyn it was the door she was seeking. She discovered the account numbers one by one. She found out what properties were in Kody's name, shared properties and yet unclaimed by the other wives. She learned which signatures were important, which passwords opened bank accounts, and which papers were carelessly left scattered around. Kody, confident that she would never betray him, signed documents without reading them. He let her handle deposits. He gave her the codes to accounts because Robyn can handle it. And in that lack of care, the first domino fell. The second step. The transfers. Once she had access, the real maneuvering started. Quietly, cautiously, she transferred funds, not in amounts that would trigger instant suspicion, but small ones, calculated deposits into accounts within her sole discretion. The properties followed. While Kody was preoccupied with drama from Christine or dickering with Meri, Robyn pushed papers in his face. Just sign here, Kody. It's taxes. Or this is just paperwork on the trust. He looked at them hardly at all. He signed his name, too tired or too busy to ask her anything. And so, one by one, the deeds were taken from him. Piece by piece, the empire was snatched from his grasp. The mask of loyalty. What made this betrayal so devastating wasn't the actions themselves, but the disguise. Through it all, Robyn never let down the mask of loyalty. When there were cameras around, she wept alongside him. When the other wives called him out for favoritism, she leapt to his defense. When Kody ranted about feeling unappreciated, she nodded in agreement, eyes full of sympathy. She was the ideal actress. To everyone, she was the sole remaining wife standing beside him. To Kody, she was confirmation that there was still somebody who believed in him. And yet, as she stroked his ego with one hand, she was taking away his power with the other. The third step, secrecy and patience. Robyn understood the importance of timing. If she moved too quickly, Kody would be on to her. If she pressed too hard, he could become suspicious. So she waited. She allowed him to think he still had control. While Christine walked out, Robyn consoled him. When Janelle cooled off, she whispered that he still had her. When Meri chilled, Robyn assured him that he would be okay. All the while, she was making arrangements for the day she would no longer have to pretend to be the loyal wife. Kody's blindness. The irony of it all was how blind Kody was. He boasted that he was the leader, that he could see what others couldn't. But he never saw the storm in his own home. His pride made him believe that Robyn's loyalty was unconditional. He was so intent on punishing Christine, controlling Janelle, and excluding Meri that he didn't see the knife being sharpened behind his back. Even when little things didn't add up, the strange withdrawals, the lost paperwork, he dismissed it. Robyn would never cheat him. He reassured himself. She was his soulmate, his protector, the one who always stood up for him. But love blinded him, and pride kept him from inquiring. The fourth step, total control. By the time the plan was finished, it was all hers. The bank accounts, the trust, the properties, even their home, every one of the legal documents was in her name. Kody had unknowingly given it all to her, thinking he was setting them up for life. And the brilliance of Robyn's plan was that before he could even figure it out, there was nothing he could do about it. The signatures belonged to him. The transfers were lawful. The locks were sealed. Robyn had accomplished something no wife ever had before. She had taken Kody's empire away from him and put it all in her control. The emotional conflict. But was it mere cold calculation? Or was there emotion hidden underneath the betrayal? Others think Robyn did it for survival. After all the years of chaos, after seeing the other wives go, she knew the money would not hold out if Kody continued to make reckless decisions. She wanted security for her children and for herself. Some think it was vengeance. A woman who had been accused of partiality, responsible for the downfall of the family, finally fighting back by making Kody's trust his downfall. Maybe it was both, fear and anger, survival and retribution, combined into one killing plan. The moment of realization. The day Kody learned the truth was the day his world fell apart. He sat at the table in the dining room, papers laid out before him, his complexion sickly pale as the truth hit him. It was all gone. Every cent, every square inch of land, every last vestige of control, gone. And when he approached her, begging for answers, she didn't deny it. She cried no tears. Nor did she say she was sorry. She just stood strong and said something he never thought he'd ever hear. Yes, Kody, I did it, because someone had to. Betrayal complete. In that instant, the facade was broken. The loyal wife had turned executioner. The woman he held as validation of his authority had turned into the one to take it all away. It wasn't Christine who tore him down. It wasn't Janelle. It wasn't Meri. It was Robyn, the most trusted of all. And that betrayal wounded him more than anything else. The seeds of Kody's destruction had been planted in secret, watered with stealth, and harvested with meticulous care. Before he even knew it, the empire had vanished, and the throne that he had occupied belonged solely to Robyn. Night had fallen dark and wet upon the Brown mansion. It lashed against the windows, the sort of storm that was equal to the turmoil raging within. In the kitchen, there was a pile of papers scattered across the marble countertop, bank statements, deeds to property, signatures. Kody had paced back and forth for hours, shuffling through the documents, his hands shaking, his face white as the truth sank in further and further. For years he thought he was above the law. For years he relied on Robyn as his anchor. But now, looking at the incriminating evidence, his world spun on its axis. His name, the one he felt granted him power, was erased from the deeds. The funds he felt he held sway over were empty. Each and every line led back to Robyn. The epiphany crushed him, and yet fueled a rage he could hardly contain. Gripping the papers in his fist, Kody strode down the hall, his boots thudding against the floorboards. His heart raged, not merely with fury, but with shame. This wasn't a wife challenging his authority. This wasn't a fight he could yell his way through. This was betrayal. The deepest, most cutting kind. The showdown begins. He discovered Robyn in the living room, reclining quietly on the couch with her hands crossed in her lap. The storm outside cast lightning flashes across her face, highlighting her serene, composed expression. She seemed to have been waiting for him. Robyn, Kody's voice cracked, rage and incredulity tangled together. He threw the papers on the coffee table, the pages scattering like shattered glass. What is this? Tell me it isn't so. Tell me you didn't transfer everything. Every account, every piece of property into your name. Robyn's eyes darted to the papers, but did not stay there. She did not move, was calm, almost unnervingly so. You already know the answer, Kody. Kody's fingers trembled as he pointed a shaking finger at her. No, don't do this to me. Don't stand there and pretend you're innocent. This is betrayal. You took everything from me. Robyn stood up for the first time, leaving the couch behind. She didn't cringe. She didn't weep. Instead, she stiffened her shoulders, her voice firm, her words measured. I didn't steal, Kody. I protected. You were reckless. You were destroying us. Someone had to act before it was too late. Kody's rage. His anger was only fueled by her calmness. His face reddened, his voice bellowing, resonating through the house like thunder. Protected? Don't go spinning this, Robyn. You acted behind my back. You signed documents. You sucked accounts dry. You had my name removed from all things. You made me look like a fool. Me, the man who built this family. The words tumbled out of him, crazed and frantic, like a drowning man grasping for breath. He slammed his fist on the coffee table, the papers spilling farther. Do you have any idea what you've done? Do you have any idea what people will say when they get it? They'll think I was weak. They'll think I was powerless. Robyn didn't blink. Because you were. The words cut like a knife to his heart. Robyn's resolve. She came closer, her eyes blazing not with anger but with conviction. Do you think I didn't notice what was going on, Kody? Do you think I didn't see how you flung money at issues rather than solving them? How you bargained without a thought? How you disregarded the future because you were so fixated on power in the present? Christine cautioned you. Janelle cautioned you. Even Meri attempted to warn you. But you didn't listen. You listened only to yourself. Her tone became sharper. I couldn't let you continue to ruin everything. So yes, I took over. Yes, I signed those documents. Because if I hadn't, we'd be standing in ashes today with nothing to our names. Kody panted hard, his chest bucking. Our name? Our name? You mean your name? Because that's all I see on those deeds. Robyn Brown. Not Kody. Not family. Just you. The breaking point, a flash of lightning outside filled the room with bitter white light. Kody's expression contorted in desperation. He moved one step closer to her, the rage in his eyes meeting the icy calm in hers. You were supposed to be faithful, he yelled. You were supposed to be the one that never betrayed me. Christine walked out. Janelle walked out. Meri walked out. But you belonged to me. You were the one I trusted. Robyn's jaw clenched, but her tone was even. And that's why I did it. Because if I hadn't, Kody, you would have pulled both of us down with you. You don't realize it, do you? You don't realize how far you've fallen. You say it's leadership, but it's pride. You say it's protection, but it's control. And it's cost you everything. Her voice rang out like the gavel hitting. Final, irreversible. For a moment, the house was silent once more. The rain the only sound crashing into the windows. Kody stood frozen, shivering, his lips opening and closing, but no words coming out. He wasn't accustomed to this powerlessness, being told he was mistaken. All his life, he required obedience, allegiance, control. And now, with one stroke, Robyn had taken it all away. The silence was shattered by her last words. Quiet, chilly, dead. Pack your belongings, Kody. You no longer reside here. The words struck harder than any cry would. Kody stepped back, his feet stumbling over each other, as if the earth had been torn away beneath his feet. He gazed at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, he saw that she was not bluffing. There was no tremble in her voice, no falter in her eyes. She meant it. His bag had been parked beside the door, zipper half done, taunting him. He glared at it, then at her. His mouth quivered. You can't do this to me. This is my home, my family, my name. The softness of Robyn's eyes wasn't pity, but a kind of finality that comes with having already made a choice. It was Kody. Not anymore. Though the confrontation was private, the ripple effect would soon explode beyond those walls. Cameras, fans, tabloids. Everyone would know. Christine's warnings about Robyn would no longer be dismissed. Janelle's frustrations about Kody's reckless choices would ring true. Meri's quiet bitterness would suddenly look justified. But all of that did not matter in this moment. In this room, only Kody and Robyn existed. A deposed king and the queen who had stolen his throne. Kody's fists clenched, not with aggression, but with desperation. Robyn, please. Don't do this. Don't be like them. You're all I have left. For the blink of an eye her expression reflected pain, just a flicker, then it set once more. And she shook her head. You had me, Kody. You had everything. And you threw it all away. The words cut deeper than anything else. For in his heart, he knew that they were true. Minutes afterward, Kody stood by the door, his suitcase trailing behind him, his shoulders slumped. The rain slapped his face as he went out, the tempest engulfing him. He looked back once, glancing at the house, at the woman framed in the window, but the door shut, and so did his kingdom. The battle was done. The judgment was plain. The man who had ordered loyalty had been left with nothing but the sound of his own defeat. And the woman he trusted the most had turned out to be his ultimate arbiter and executioner. The door had closed loudly behind him. But the reverberations of that evening reached far beyond the Brown family estate. The storm outside eventually subsided. But within the realm of sister wives, everything would forever be changed. Kody Brown was gone. The man who had stood at the hub of a plural family, the man who commanded obedience and loyalty, was dethroned by the very woman he had thought his last bastion of support. And as he pulled his bag away into the darkness, the domino effect of his collapse started to roll out through his wives, his children, and a viewing audience of millions who had watched them for over a decade. Christine's vindication. Christine Brown was not shocked when she received the news. Her response was satisfaction. She had been the first to go, the first to risk standing up to Kody, and walking away from the empire he held onto so tightly. She had tolerated the shame for years, the humiliation of being pushed to the side, dismissed, less because Robyn had stepped center stage. She had pleaded with Kody to hear her, to notice the cracks developing, to cease pouring all into Robyn and ignoring the others. But he never heard. Now she didn't have to utter "I told you so." The evidence was staring her in the face from the headlines. Friends characterized Christine as quietly victorious. She informed loved ones that Robyn's betrayal came as no surprise to her. Kody always believed Robyn was different, she shared, but he had no idea she was like the rest of us, tired of his controlling ways, tired of his pride issues, tired of living in his shadow. The only thing is she played the game longer, and she won. For Christine, it wasn't just about justice. It was about closure. Janelle's cold justice. Janelle sensibly and calmly responded in a different way. She didn't laugh, she didn't gloat, she just nodded. To her, this wasn't romance or betrayal. This was money, stability, survival. For years Janelle had battled Kody on money issues. She cautioned him repeatedly that his impulsive choices, purchasing property he couldn't afford, spending money on pipe dreams that never panned out, wasting savings on egotistical projects would leave them broke. But Kody always dismissed her, claiming that as the leader he was always right. Now as she gazed at the news of Robyn taking the assets, Janelle felt a dark sense of satisfaction. He ignored me. He ignored all of us. And now he's paying the price. She told friends that Robyn's move wasn't shocking. It was strategic. She knew Kody wouldn't listen to anyone else. So she waited until the time was right, until he'd burned every other bridge. And then she took control. She secured her future. And his arrogance made it easy. For Janelle it was justice. Kody's pride had finally caught up to him. Meri's quiet relief. And then there was Meri. For Meri, the aftermath awakened something more nuanced. She'd been emotionally pushed out years ago. She was a ghost in her own marriage, existing only as a figure. Kody had embarrassed her in public, dismissing, belittling, acknowledging he no longer thought of her as his wife. When she learned that Robyn had turned against him, Meri experienced a strange feeling of relief. It wasn't happiness, really. It wasn't revenge. It was the removal of a weight she'd carried for a long time. For the first time, she no longer felt alone. For the first time, Kody wasn't condescending to her from a throne. He had been brought down too. Friends closest to her reported that she just smiled upon reading the headlines. Now he knows what it feels like, she whispered. The children's pain. But while the wives experienced different degrees of vindication, the children felt something altogether different. Pain. This was not about pride or money for them. This was about family. Their security, the one they thought they had, was lost. Their father, whom they once saw as strong, now appeared weak, lost, desperate. Some took the side of their mothers, accusing Kody of years of neglect and bad decisions. Others resented Robyn, not able to comprehend how she had been disloyal to the man she once stood up for. Many felt lost, engulfed in the fire of a conflict they never sought. The backlash wasn't only between Robyn and Kody, it flowed into every relationship, breaking bonds that were already weak. When it became public, the internet exploded. Social media exploded in shock, disbelief, and a tsunami of memes. Fans who once railed against Robyn for being Kody's favorite now turned on her with anger, labeling her a mastermind, a manipulator, a thief. Some applauded her, hailing her as having finally gotten the better of a man who treated his wives like pawns. Others accused her of cold-bloodedness, calculating ruthlessness. Headlines blared across tabloids. Robyn betrays Kody, steals the property. The favorite wife becomes the executioner. Kody Brown, king of nothing. Talk shows argued whether Robyn was a villain or a survivor. Commentators analyzed each step, replaying past episodes of Sister Wives and indicating the signs nobody had noticed before. The drama wasn't merely family business anymore, it was national entertainment, a public display of betrayal. Kody's desperation. And then there was Kody. Homeless, humiliated, and desperate. He moved from hotel to rented room, holding on to what was left of his dignity. He attempted to call Robyn, to beg her, but she dismissed him. He appeared again at the house, suitcase in tow, to discover the locks changed, and a lawyer's notice stuck to the door. The letter was cold, final, cruel. It laid it out in the law books, what his heart had already told him. He had no claim, no rights, no power. All belonged to Robyn now. Kody was enraged. He declared to friends he would fight back, that he would sue her, that he would show her he had been deceived. But he knew the truth deep inside. His signatures were on the documents. His arrogance had deceived him. His pride had killed him. The man who used to insist on loyalty now had no one left to stand by his side. Robyn's new role. Meanwhile, Robyn accepted her new role. To others she was the villain, the woman who killed her husband and stole everything. But to others she was the survivor, the woman who survived all the wreckage and the madness and gained stability for herself and her children at last. She did not cry. She did not say sorry. She was unyielding, standing as if to defend her family, the one who dared to do what the rest of the world would not, love her or despise her. One thing was certain. Robyn had triumphed. The aftermath wasn't just about real estate. It was about power. It was about the downfall of an empire founded on pride, favoritism, and control. Christine, Janelle, and Meri were vindicated. The children grappled to put the pieces together. The public gorged on the drama, turning it into headlines, arguments, and entertainment. And Kody, he was left walking, not only without a home, but without a sense of self. The patriarch, the breadwinner, the head of the household, now nothing more than a shadow of what he once was. The destruction was total. The empire had crumbled, and the world had witnessed it in flames. The chilly night air enveloped Kody Brown as he came back to what was once his stronghold. He stood at the driveway's entrance, his suitcase by his side, gazing at the shadow of the mansion. The mansion towered above him, no longer a reminder of his dominance but of his fall. The tempest had passed, but the silence was weightier now. This was his final try, his final stand. He muttered to himself in a hushed tone, as if attempting to muster up courage. She won't do this. She can't do this. She needs me. But he knew inside. The documents in his hand, bank reports, deeds, contracts, all bore the same reality. He was not the owner anymore. He was no longer the leader. He was an outsider, pleading to be readmitted. As he walked onto the porch, he grasped the doorknob, holding it tightly, turning with effort. Click, nothing. He attempted once more. The lock was rigid. Alien, Robyn had replaced it. His breath knotted in his throat. His house, where he had previously walked with ease, was no longer his. Even the door spurned him. Taped to the front door, neatly, was a white envelope. Bold black letters across it. Kody Brown. His heart was racing as he tore it open, unfolding the sharp paper within. His eyes darted over the words, each one cutting deeper than a knife. It was from Robyn's attorney. The letter was clinical, cold, distant. but its content was brutal. Mr. Brown, this notification is to make you aware that all properties, assets, and financial accounts which were under joint or individual ownership are now legally transferred in the sole name of Mrs. Robyn Brown. According to the paperwork with your signatures, you have surrendered any legal right to the said assets. You are commanded not to occupy the property at address, as you no longer have any ownership or residence rights. Any effort to do this will be regarded as trespassing and dealt with by law. At the bottom, the coup de grace, Robyn's firm, even signature, and the lawyer's stamp. Kody's hands trembled. His knees almost went out from under him. He leaned back against the door, sliding down until he sat on the porch. The letter crumpled in his fist. It was more than a house he had lost. It was his pride, his power, his family legacy. He caught sight of a movement in the upper window. He blinked into the blackness. And there she stood, Robyn peeping over the curtain. Their gazes crossed for a mere instant. Kody's lips shook. He bellowed upwards, his voice breaking, "Robyn, please, please don't do this to me. I gave you everything. You were to be my partner, my soulmate." But the curtain didn't budge. The window remained closed. Robyn's shadow hung, unmoving and unshaken, before vanishing into the night. The memories. Kody's head swirled with memories. Robyn smiling at their wedding, walking beside him in arguments with the other wives, leaning in close to whisper oaths of fidelity. When Christine stormed out, she was his rock, his reminder someone still believed in him. And now she was the one who struck the final blow. It was cruel, nearly poetic. The wife he placed higher than any other had stripped him of his crown, not with screams or blows, but with signatures and silence. The morning after, the news made headlines. Robyn Brown wins it all. Kody kicked out. From patriarch to pauper, Kody Brown loses family empire. Talk shows broke down the lawyer's letter, reading it on air. Commentators chuckled. Others shook their heads in amazement. The once entitled man now inspired pity and ridicule. On Twitter and Facebook, the response flooded and karma finally caught up to Kody. Robyn played the long game and won. This is like watching a reality TV Shakespeare tragedy. Kody read the comments on his phone in the back of his car, his face white, his jaw clenched. Every sentence a stab, every meme a poignant reminder of what he had done. The wives' responses. Christine's was brief, nearly self-satisfied. "Told you." Janelle pragmatically, "This is what happens when you don't listen." Meri's was soft, almost gentle. "Now you know how it feels." Every message hurt deep, not because of what they said, but because of what they meant. Kody had excluded them, pushed them away, chosen Robyn over them, and ultimately she had come away with everything. The children for his children. The aftermath was catastrophic. Some felt relief, happy to finally witness their father's pride being brought low. Others were angry with Robyn, resentful that she was destroying what little was left of the family. But for most it was bafflement. How could their father, the man who preached leadership and strength, be brought so low? The family reunion ceased. The holidays were shattered. The kids were made to take sides, some with their mothers, others standing on the outside. The empire wasn't broken, it was dissolved. Kody's isolation weeks became months, and Kody was adrift. Hotels were his temporary residences. His belongings were crammed into suitcases. His formerly booming voice now only rang out in empty rooms. He said to anyone who would listen that he would fight back, that he would sue Robyn. But the people who knew him best saw the truth in his eyes. His battle was over. The signatures were his. The documents were legal. He had signed his empire away with his own signature. And worst of all, he knew it. Robyn's victory meanwhile. Robyn prospered. She glided through the mansion as if she owned it. No longer the shy, tearful wife. She was the owner now. The queen of the castle. Some called her a villain, a woman who had betrayed her husband and shattered his pride. But to others she was a survivor, a woman who had survived years of turmoil and finally won a future for her children and herself. She did no interviews. She said nothing. She didn't have to. Her silence was louder than anything that could be said. The final image weeks later. One evening, Kody went back to the mansion one final time. Not to plead, not to struggle, but just to look. He stood on the sidewalk opposite, looking at the bright windows, observing movement within. It wasn't his home anymore. It never would be. He stood, his coat wrapped around him more tightly as the gusts of wind tore down the street. For the first time in his life, no one was behind him, no wife at home, no kids racing to him. He was alone. And as he vanished into the darkness, the memory of Robyn in the window above stuck in his head, not with pity, not with regret, but with triumph. The gavel hadn't come down in the courtroom, but in the court of justice and betrayal. It was absolute. Robyn had triumphed. Kody was eliminated. The Browns' empire had vanished, and only the echo of a man who lost it all to the most trusted woman remained.